Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Aranza Zugalan and I'm a member of the BEUC. Good morning and welcome to today's webinar.
Welcome to Build Up,
My name is
the
Aranza
European
Zugalan,
Commission's
and I'm a
portal
member
for
of the
energy
BEUC
efficiency
technical
and
team.
renewable energy in buildings. Directly stemming from the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, Build Up is the meeting place for everyone involved in making the European building and construction sector more energy efficient. Every month we focus on a topic that is key to making Europe's buildings as energy efficient as possible. Exploring that, you can find the latest content such as expert talks, webinars, case studies and more. From architects and engineers to academics and policy makers, we've got you covered. Build Up brings together thousands of registered members to reap the benefit of Europe's collective intelligence on all aspects of energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. The Build Up portal benefits from the expertise of our ambassadors. Drawn from industry and academia, the ambassadors bridge the gap between EU and national level and help shape our editorial content. Want to promote your work? Build Up disseminates your research, projects and events through a variety of channels. Become a member to exchange knowledge with your peers. You can disseminate tools and resources, share good practices, and consult open source publications. Join the discussion on social media and become part of the Build Up community, or subscribe to our newsletter to receive the latest news. However you participate, the Build Up portal is here to inspire, inform and connect. Build Up, the European portal for energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. Join the community for opportunities and updates.
It is a pleasure for Build Up to host today's webinar and workshop event entitled Decarbonising on a Massive Scale Through the Deployment of Heat Pumps. What are the challenges and levers for speeding up deployment? Brought to you by the BEUC, Bureau Européen des Unions des Consommateurs, Ressorts, and Build Up. This online workshop is split into 4 main parts, during which we will delve into the role of heat pumps in decarbonization, sharing the insights and experience of 2 project partners, Clear HP and Life Street HP. Before we begin, we invite and encourage the audience to send us their questions or comments to the speakers throughout the session. To do so, please use the GoToWebinar question function. These questions or comments will be addressed at the end of the webinar. Finally, we would like to inform you that you will be able to find the recording of this workshop on the Build Up portal and our YouTube channel in the coming days, together with the presentation slides. The agenda for today's webinar will be composed of 4 sessions. Owen Kelly, Policy Officer at BEUC, will present the first 2 sessions addressing the Clear HP project. The first one will present the aims that the project want to achieve, and the second one will introduce the policy insights for renewable heating, where they are and where they are heading. Pierre-Antoine Dufresne, a manager at Ressorts, will present the 2 last sessions addressing the Street HP Renew project. The first one will present the context and origin of the project, and the second one will introduce how the project will proceed. At the end of the presentation, the speakers will give the floor to a Q&A session to receive comments and questions from the audience. And now, without further hesitation, we will move directly to the first session by Owen Kelly, Policy Officer at BEUC. Owen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Arancha, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present the Clear HP project. So my name is Owen Kelly, and I work on the energy team in BEUC, which, if you're Brussels-based, you might know us already. We are the European consumer organization. And one of the things I do on the policy team is I coordinate the policy aspect of the project Clear HP. Normally, I would have given this presentation with the project manager, Sarah Petroni, but she's out of office this week, so she sends her apologies. So I'm going to do both aspects of it. Just as a quick introduction, CLEAR stands, it's a bit of a mouthful. It actually stands for Consumers Leading the EU's Energy Ambition Response. And I'll explain in a moment where we got the name from. And then obviously HP stands for heat pumps. So I just need to make sure my slides are running. There we go. The reason we chose the name Clear is because it's actually the 4th project in a series of clear projects. So the first one started in, I think, close to 10 years ago, before my time here, and it worked on collectively switching consumers to a different energy pricing system, as far as I understand it. That was followed by Clear 2.0, which focused more on collective purchase campaigns and energy efficiency. We just finished Clear X, which was primarily on collective purchase campaigns with consumers across Central and Eastern Europe, and it looked primarily at both solar panels and heat pumps. And now we have Clear HP, which is similar to the Clear X project, but exclusively for heat pumps. It's run across the countries you see on the screen, so Portugal, Spain, Belgium, Italy, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Bulgaria. Each one of those countries is going to run a collective purchase campaign, which is what's at the heart of the project. And they will run the campaign either to offer an air-to-water heat pump to consumers or an air-to-air heat pump to consumers. In terms of the other goals of the project, we hope to engage over 1,300 consumers in workshops. We hope to reach out to and ideally train or install over 180 heat pump installers and retailers, which I will go into in a few moments. And ideally, we would like to see over €3.5 million worth of investments in sustainable energy. So who's involved in the project? As I mentioned, I work for BEUC, who is helping to coordinate the project and run the policy aspects of it. So BEUC is a Brussels-based organization made up of, it's an umbrella group of national consumer organizations. So there's 45 members at present, spread across 31 countries across Europe. And we are running the project with several of our members. So on the screen, you have Altro Consumo, a national consumer organization from Italy, Active Consumers, the same type of organization from Bulgaria, SOS from Slovakia, ZBS from Slovenia, OKU from Spain, and Testasha from Belgium, who, if you live in Belgium, you might have already heard of. Then we have three other project partners. The first one is ICRT, which stands for International Consumer Research and Testing. And what they will do in the project is run product testing of heat pumps. And then we have Deco Protest, who is also a consumer organization based in Lisbon. And not only will they run their own collective purchase campaign, but they will help to coordinate them for the other members of the project, because it's really a big aspect of the project. And another thing we're very happy with is we have the European Heat Pump Association in the project. That's one of the ways in which this differs from our previous CLEAR projects, is that we actually have direct input from a heat pump association in this project. So I mentioned already that at the heart of this is collective purchase campaigns. And you might be wondering why exactly we think collective purchase campaigns are a good way to tackle the transition to renewables. Well, for one thing, we have the average consumer, right? Let's take that little man in the corner of the screen with the big hair surrounded by question marks. So the average consumer, many of them actually want to switch to renewable heating. They want to be part of the discussion on climate, but they have no idea where to start. They don't necessarily know what that means or where to begin. So what a collective purchase campaign does is, for one thing, it offers guidance and information to consumers on home renovation and heat pump installation. So it gives them an idea of where to start. Then you offer the consumer, through the collective purchase campaign, you offer them a highly tested, highly functioning heat pump. And not only that, but you offer it to them with a discount on both the product and the installation of the product. So in a lot of ways, you take a consumer who has no idea how to transition to renewables, and you kind of hold their hand through the whole process and get them a better price in the meantime. Just saying collective purchase campaign, though, it's probably a bit unclear what that actually entails. So I'm going to give you a simplified explanation of the process. This is not every step, but we only have so much time, so I'll give you the main points, the greatest hits, let's say. The first thing we need to do with the national organizations is market research country by country. The reason we need to do this is because we need to know what models and brands of heat pump, what type of products are available in every country before we're going to run a collective purchase campaign. Once we know that, we can identify models that are widely available on the national market. This is really important because, as you can imagine, if our members approach a retailer and they say, we want to run a collective purchase campaign with maybe 65 consumers looking for a heat pump at some point in the next year, and it has to be the same brand and model, many retailers, there'd be many brands and models on the market that they wouldn't be able to confirm that number for that long because the market shifts, right? So it's really important that you identify models that are going to be widely available on the market for the next year or so, however long it takes to run the campaign. Once you identify the models, you send them to ICRT, who I mentioned before, and they do product testing. They look at several aspects of product performance. They look at noise. They look also key one, energy efficiency, obviously. Now, it goes without saying that if a heat pump is being sold on the market in the EU, it already meets many, many criteria, right? What the product testing does, so it already passes eco-design rules and everything. It's already fit for being on the market. What the product testing does is it takes certain criteria and decides that those are the ones they're looking for when they're running the collective purchase campaign. For example, energy efficiency being a key one. So those products are sent for testing, and then the test results are shared with the partners in the national consumer organizations. Based on that, they choose which models or brands, which models they're going to use in the collective purchase campaign. They get in touch with installers, they explain the offer, or they explain the project. They come up with an agreed offer, financial offer with the installers of what they would charge a consumer for the installation of this product in their home. And then consumers who have signed up in the meantime, because the campaign has been publicized and published with consumers at the national level, right? So consumers who have signed up and opted in to be part of the campaign, then they have the opportunity to be put in touch with the installer for the agreed financial offer. And the very last step, if all goes according to plan, would be that the installer will then come and install the heat pump in the consumer's home, and the consumer will be very happy for the rest of their life. So, aside from the collective purchase campaigns, another thing that the consumer organizations are going to work on through the project is to better educate consumers about the transition to renewables. One of the things they're going to do is they're going to produce a guide for consumers on what they need to know about heat pumps, where to start with heat pumps, for example. And after that, they are going to run workshops for consumers. This is something that national consumer organizations, some of them already have experience with through either the ClearX project or, for example, the STEP project on energy poverty, which we ran a couple of years ago. So they're going to run workshops with consumers, and they're going to give them a bunch of information through these projects. One of the things they're going to give them is energy saving advice, information about energy efficiency. Connected to that, obviously, how to make their home heat pump ready, if possible. We do want to be clear that not every single home in Europe is heat pump ready or can necessarily be made heat pump ready, but many of them can. So we want to educate people on how to make their home heat pump ready. And then they will also provide information on things like financial support, subsidies and loans, because heat pumps in many cases are quite an expensive product. And many consumers will need either a subsidy to bring down the upfront cost or a loan so that they can pay it back over time. So they provide information at the national level on what kind of financial supports are available, which is something we're reviewing through the project to see what's on offer. Then, where possible, our consumer organizations will work with installers. So they'll actually run workshops with installers on the needs of consumers when it comes to their heat pump journey. This is something we're really happy with, and our Slovakian member SOS has already run some workshops with installers on the ground, and they've had a really massive response, a very positive response from installers. One of the reasons being, in some cases, installers can be very small companies. They can be, in some cases, micro enterprises. one or two person companies, and they might have worked in gas or oil boilers for years, and they might not have the time or resources to learn about heat pumps, to shift into the world of heat pumps. So that's another thing some of our consumer organizations through the project have already started, which we're really happy to see. So those are some key points on the project itself. Now I'm going to explain heat pumps from a consumer perspective. So some of the research we've done internally in BEUC, last year we did a really valuable project called Mystery Shopping, Consumer Experiences when Trying to Buy a Heat Pump, where we got the average consumer who was interested in a heat pump to go through the process themselves of researching what they could find out about heat pumps and how to buy one, having a visit from an installer and getting the quote from the installer, and we've reviewed that whole process. So here are some of the key questions that consumers came back to us with when we reviewed the process. First one was, where do I get my information? So there is a huge amount of information on the internet about heat pumps. And you could say that consumers can easily become overloaded with information about heat pumps, and not all of it is impartial, not all of it is trustworthy. So they wonder where to get information, which is where the project steps in. They also have a key question we mentioned earlier: is my home heat pump ready? One of the things we found in this project, which was a concern, was you can get an energy audit of your home, which we would recommend, or you can get an installer, a heat pump installer, for example, to visit your home, to review it, and to tell you if your home is heat pump ready, and then they recommend you a heat pump. What we found in some countries that we ran this project, and I have to say, for one reason or another, the worst example was Spain. We found that installers were visiting installers were visiting homes of consumers who were interested in buying a heat pump, and the review they were doing of the home was not complete. It was not adequate. It didn't do a thorough examination of whether the home was heat pump ready. The problem was the advice the consumers were getting at the end of the installer's visit was, yes, your home is ready for a heat pump and you should buy one, which is exactly the route we should not be taking when it comes to heat pumps. We need to be putting heat pumps in homes that are ready for a heat pump and making other homes ready for a heat pump. We do not want consumers to find that they have installed a heat pump where they shouldn't, and that their comfort level has been reduced, or that their bills have skyrocketed because their home wasn't ready for it. So that's a key question, a key concern of ours at the moment. Another question then that consumers have is, what kind of heat pump should I buy? Because there's lots of types of heat pump, right? In this project, we're running it on air-to-air heat pumps and air-to-water heat pumps, but you also have ground source geothermal heat pumps, for example. One of the key questions is on climate. It depends on what climate region you live in many cases, what kind of heat pump you're going to want. For example, if you have cooling needs, you might want an air-to-air heat pump. If you don't have cooling needs, you might want an air-to-water heat pump. It also depends on the type of housing you live in. Do you live in a single family house? Do you have access to something like a garden where you could put a heat pump, or perhaps a balcony that might accept a heat pump? Do you live in an apartment? Where exactly would you put the heat pump? Do you have adequate space for it? And in some cases, what would the noise level be if you were to install a heat pump in that part of your property? Then there's the questions on subsidies and loans. As mentioned, I think that's fairly straightforward. Consumers might need subsidies and or loans, and this information is not always super easy to access. Who can I call if something goes wrong? This is obviously, as consumer organizations, one of our key concerns: liability. We have many consumers who install their heat pump are happy with it, right? And they have no problems with it. But we have also seen anecdotal evidence of consumers who have installed a heat pump and it hasn't been smooth. As I mentioned, either their comfort level has been reduced or their bills have gone up when they weren't expecting it. So there have been cases where consumers have called the installer and they've said, I have a problem with my heat pump, I don't know why it's not working. And in some cases, the installer has said, actually, it's not my problem, you need to talk to the manufacturer. So they call the manufacturer says, actually, it's not my problem, you need to talk to the heating designer for the building. and then they get trapped in a circle. The consumer is left holding the bag, and this is important not for just moral and ethical reasons and for consumer rights reasons. It's also important for the heat pump industry, because what we found in this project was the people that a consumer will listen to most about whether or not they should buy a heat pump is not a heat pump expert. It's their friends and family. So the first thing they do is reach out to their network and they ask, do you know anyone who has a heat pump? Have they had a good experience with it? And we found, you can see it coming. When consumers had a positive experience with the heat pump, they might share it. But if they had a bad experience with the heat pump, they definitely shared it. So if you have bad after sales service, it's going to actually ultimately impede the transition to heat pumps in the long run. So it's a good business case to have good after sales service. And the last question consumers tended to ask was whether they need a grid connection or a permit for their home. There do tend to be problems sometimes with heavily blocked up grids in some countries, and it being difficult to get a new grid connection, which is also a concern that we're trying to tackle through policy. So what can be done in terms of policy? Just another minute from me. It should be said that there has been good progress at the EU level in the last few years. Look, we have the Fit for 55 package now. We're pretty happy with it. Energy Efficiency Directive, Renewable Energy Directive, Electricity Market Design. Lots of them have been quite ambitious. And what we need to see now is ambitious transposition at the member state level, something we're going to be working on through this project with our national members. But in terms of things that can be improved, a list of certified heat pump installers provided by the government would be a good place to start. We saw this in Slovenia. We're calling it a best practice at the moment because there's certain criteria that you need to fulfill as an installer to be added to the list that the government provides and regularly updates of heat pump installers. They also have this type of list in Slovakia, but there's no criteria to get on it. So if you have poor qualifications and are not providing good customer service, you can still be added to the list, which is then not a helpful list for consumers. So there needs to be certification. Another really important issue you might hear if you dabble in the world of heat pumps: reduce taxes on electricity. We ultimately need not just the upfront cost of heat pumps to come down, we need the running costs of heat pumps to come down. They need to be cheaper to run than oil and gas boilers, because ultimately consumers vote with their pocket, right, and their wallet. We saw a really great example of this in Denmark. They reduced the tax on electricity for people who heated their home with electricity. And what this meant economically was that over time, the cost of running a heat pump went from more expensive than running than gas boiler to quite a bit cheaper than gas boiler. And guess what happened? The market shifted, consumers became aware of it, and they started to install heat pumps. So the taxes on electricity need to be reduced at the national level, if not through the ETG, which is always difficult to get through in Brussels. Providing subsidies and financing, again, a no-brainer. In terms of private financing, we really need to see banks becoming a part of this discussion and providing green loans that consumers can take part in. Training and upskilling. Obviously, more installers are needed. I think this is going to be tackled partly through the Renewable Energy Directive, but also it's going to be mentioned in the Heat Pump Action Plan that the Commission is preparing for later this year. One thing we think could possibly be done, and this would be an EU-wide campaign to encourage consumers, to encourage young people into the industry. But we would also say that you need upskilling. So not just young people, right, but also people who worked in heating for 20 years. I know if my parents' boiler breaks down, they're going to call the guy that they've known for 25 years who works on heating. And that guy works on oil and gas heating. He doesn't work in heat pumps yet. So he's going to encourage my parents, if it happens tomorrow, he's going to tell them to get another gas boiler. And that's a problem. That's why we need upskilling in the industry of heating as well. Liability, I mentioned it already. Alternative dispute resolution would be a good way to handle this. If you get a home energy renovation and you pay €8,000 and it's supposed to bring your home up to a B+ rating, but it only brings it to a C, that might be a problem with the renovation itself, and you should have access to alternative dispute resolution in those cases. Equally, for heat pump installation, many installations are good, some installations are shoddy, and through something like alternative dispute resolution, you could really tackle this. The last point I would make is that we want to ensure consumers can have access to dynamic price contracts at the national level. This is an issue, it's been resolved at the EU level through the electricity directive that came out in 2019. So every member state should be offering dynamic price contracts to consumers now. That way they can interact flexibly with the grid, they can bring down their own prices. But it's only on the market in, I think, between 10 and 12 countries at the moment. So we actually need to see proper enforcement of this law to make sure that consumers are offered flexibility. And it's a win-win, because through offering flexibility, you reduce the need for expensive infrastructure in the grid. Those are the key points from this project. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to your questions later. And I'm going to pass on to Street HP.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Pierre-Antoine from Ressorts, and I'm going to talk to you about the Street HP Reno project. Just quickly introduction, I am a member of the Energy Strong team, and our goal is to accelerate renovation in net zero of housing, of buildings in Europe to the net zero energy level. And now for this project, we are focusing on heat pumps, and I'm going to explain you why. So just to test the slideshow. Okay, it seems to work. So at first, before explaining you the project, maybe a quick introduction about the context. So some things that you already know. It's about climate change. It's about the fact that we have to decarbonize quickly our building stocks in Europe, but in the world too, because buildings account for 40% of energy consumed in Europe, and it's about 36% about greenhouse gas emissions. But another topic that is less known, it's about the social issue. Now we are seeing the fact that gas and electricity bills are increasing very fast now, and that the issue of energy poverty is more and more spread in Europe. Over 41 million Europeans were unable to keep their homes adequately warm in 2022. So we have to succeed in doing this energy jump, transforming our building stock from the actual one to a building stock only in class A, B, or C in Europe. If we focus on just energy systems, we know that now that in the European Union, we see that space heating and water heating are almost 80% of the energy consumption. So it talks about the insulation, the energy systems, and now we are going to focus on energy systems. But it shows us that we have to make some real choice now in Europe. If we analyze this energy consumption, we see that there is fossil fuel, and the major part of this consumption are about fossil fuels, fossil gas, notably. So we have to change that. But the question now is, if you are a building owner, it's about the strategy that you have to apply if you want to change these energy systems in your buildings. So you can maybe think about gas boiler replacement, but it's about fossil gas. We can imagine that in a coming future that we should have green gas, I mean biogas, but it's not already developed in public policies. And now, after that, you can think about heat pumps, how you can replace your energy systems by heat pumps. But it raises other questions, because it raises the question of which types of housing are adequate for heat pumps, and the way that you are going to do this. So Europe and France want to speed up the deployment of heat pumps to decarbonize residential heating. because we know that heat pumps offer a lot of advantages. It's more ecological and more economical to run than fossil fuel systems, for example. It's run by electricity, which is decarbonized in France and is being decarbonized in Europe through the deployment of renewables energies. It can provide heating and hot water production. It is really subsidized, and there is a lot of grants offered by governments in Europe. And sometimes it can be combined with other gas boilers, for example, depending on needs. We can imagine hybrid systems. But the deployment is now progressing, but we see now that the pace is not enough. We have to accelerate it, and the fact that it's not always carried out in a relevant manner. Indeed, today there is a lot of obstacles, a lot of barriers that we have to tackle. The first one is about the costs. Now we see that the costs are very high, and sometimes they are unclear, because if you ask different installers for a proposal of heat pump replacement, you could have some different prices, and you don't understand why. There is the fact that today heat pumps are deployed in thermal sieves. It means buildings which are not energy efficient, and it could be a problem because of the efficiency of the system, and the fact that it could be mistakes by choosing these buildings, because there is a risk for the potential energy savings. We are missing energy savings that we have to achieve. And there is the question of the architectural integration, which is a fact that is not think about today in the way that we are deploying heat pumps. So there is a lot of issues and difficulties for residents to keep informed, to take informed decisions about this technology. If we have a look on the market now, there is a lot of barriers too concerning solution providers and technologies on the market. There is a risk of scams. It's an issue that we see in France, in Germany, for example, and we have to take care of this. There is the issue of construction site annoyance, disturbance between homeowners, between your neighborhood, for example. There is a lack of manpower. We know that we have to get more and more installers and solution providers, because there is a lot of work, and there is a technical complexity, because all of housing typologies are not adapted to this technology. So we have to investigate to select the good ones that could have their energy systems replaced by heat pumps, and we have to develop tools for that. So it's one of the objectives of our street HP Reno project. We have to remove this obstacle and to accelerate the deployment of heat pumps. If you are a multi-building owners, this raises another question about the renovation strategy. Today, there is two possibilities, two ways of see the things. You have, on the one hand, deep performance renovation that you can make in one step. So it's the best business model in total cost ownerships. There is no need for further intervention before 2050, and it's a gift to the residents a strong energy shield. But there is another way to see things. It's renovation in multi-steps, maybe 2 or 3 steps, for example. It's about volume. The advantage is that you are going to treat more homes in a short term, which is an advantage regarding the social issues, because it gives a protection to a larger population from fuel poverty, for example, and energy shortage. And it treats the legal issues when you have, for example, a law forcing you renovating the class E, F, G of the energy performance certificate, it can help you to reach these goals. But these two strategies, we know now that they don't have to clash, but they have to merge, because the first one is treating the long-term goals, and the second one is treating the short-term goals. And we have to make we have to make both if we want to achieve our goals in 2050. And it raises the question, if you do some multi-steps renovation, it raises the question of the renovation pathway, because the goal that we have to keep in mind is the energy performance of our building stocks in 2050. So we have to think of the different steps, and maybe we can start by energy systems replacements, by heat pumps, but we have to think of the future steps, maybe roof insulation, for example, or windows replacements that we have to do before 2050 to achieve the net zero level in 2050. And if we have this look on the global energy, the global building stocks, we see that replacing energy systems could be a good first step for some types of housing. About the net zero pathway to 2050, so it's crucial to meet our targets, as previously said. If we have a look on a case study, we see that multi-steps renovations lead a lot of different costs, but the efficiency is less than one deep renovation in one step. The energy bill is achieving a threshold and can be below this threshold. So if we think about replacing energy systems by deploying heat pumps, we have we say, okay, but not just anyway. We have to establish the different pathway defining the net zero roadmap for each concerned buildings, because we must not compromise the potential for energy and carbon savings. Sorry about this slide. And another point of our project, so as said previously, we have the Energy Strong team. So we are thinking of industrialized and prefabricated energy systems. And it leads us to the question of the building typologies. In the different projects that we already have in Europe, we had this sort of systems. It's energy systems containing heat pumps, but ventilation systems, for example. And we see that we can develop such energy modules that are adapted to a sort of to some housing typologies. So we have to list these different building typologies that are adapted to this sort of energy modules, and then to develop solutions to develop these energy modules with heat pumps that are fitted for these building typologies. So you can see to the screen some example of projects in Netherlands, for example, with a very efficient integration of these heat pumps in the roof, in the facades, for example. And the goal was to have something on the architectural point of view that are very integrated to these buildings. Just to focus on this type of systems, you know, it's totally prefabricated. So the goal of the industrialization is to develop systems that are better, that are with a better quality, with a better energy performance, and to put in on site very quickly, more quickly as usual as traditional systems. And the main goal of that is to decrease costs, because we want to deploy massively heat pumps, and for that we have to decrease cost of these systems. So that's the goal of the industrialization. Other example that are some systems, some prefabricated systems. You know, you can see a sort of boxes that are putting on the facades of homes, totally architectural integrated, as previously said. In France, we have the example of Synerpod, which is a startup developing such heat pump systems. So you have a picture of this system. It contains heat pumps, double flow ventilation systems, it provides heating and hot water, domestic hot water. And you can have other services and other systems, like, for example, an inverter for solar production, so solar electricity production, for example. You can have a sort of electric device if you want to recharge your car or your bike, electric bike, for example. So it's such systems that are making possible by this sort of systems. The example of Factory Zero, which is a Netherlands firms developing 4 types of systems, so sort of package of energy module that you can put on facades, on roof, inside, I mean indoor the building, etc. And the global idea is to develop some new products that are very attractive for the consumers and for the renovation. And this is an example of one of these systems, which is putting on the facades on these homes. So now, if I have a focus on the project, so the goal of our project is to accelerate heat pumps deployment, and for that, we want to work on two bricks. On the one end, the goal is to raise the demands, so building owners, and making them be part of group purchases. So the goal is to find similar homes in, for example, in the same geographical areas. For example, in suburban areas, you see, like the picture on the left, there is a lot of individual homes with similar typologies. This is our target. It is in these neighborhoods that we want to raise collective purchasing. And on the other end, the goal is to raise a catalog of solutions, simple, clear, and industrialized. So it's offsite solutions to fit to the building typologies that we have found on the one hand. So the goal is to send a very strong signal to the supply side that there is a massive demand, segmented into different types of housing, in order to help solution provider in develop investments in research and development, in industrialization of their products, and to reduce costs by achieving economy of scale, because by making collective purchase, we know that we can decrease the costs, so to deploy stronger the heat pumps installation. About the partners of the project, so it's a consortium of 11 partners in France, in Italy, in Germany, and in Netherlands. We have 2 types of partners. We have 7 expert actors in consulting and social and environmental innovation. It's about market development team. So you have the coordinator, which is Edera. Edera is one of the, it's a company in Italy which is deploying Energy Sprong in Italy. In France, you have Ressorts, which is deploying Energy Sprong in France. You have Pouget Consultant, which is an engineering firm, and Vraiment, which is a design agency about ecological transition. In Germany, you have EVO, which is a social housing, which is a housing organization for Eastern Europe, and deploying the Energy Sprong approach in Germany. And you have Co-Benefic and Ansvar 2030, which are 2 companies deploying, working with local authorities and housing organization in Germany to deploy renovation. We have 2 experts for market dissemination. We have the Global Energy Sprong Alliance, which is the European Association of Energy Sprong, and we have the European Heat Pumps Association, sorry, which is deploying the technology, which is supporting the deployment of heat pumps in Europe. And finally, we have 2 beta testers. It's one city, in a French city, which is named Tabanac, and one social housing organization, which is Union Sociale pour l'Habitat, in the French region of Pays de la Loire, to deploy the concept, to test, and to use our tools and our work in their region. If I can just summarize our work, we have three major axes of development. The first one is about developing heat pump packages and one associated modeling tools to organize street energy switch waves. We have called the project Street HP Reno because the goal is to replace energy systems at a scale of entire streets or neighborhoods. So we have to find new solutions and to develop a tool to organize this collective purchase at the scale of cities, so working with local authorities. The second one is about facilitating this energy systems replacement and this collective purchasing. We want to develop investment and contract bundles to help consumers and local authorities to set up this sort of collective purchasing. So we want to write some set of contracts that are directly easy to use and to accelerate this collective purchases. So the goal is to overcome legal and economic barriers. And the third one is about the industrial deployment. The goal is to support solution providers and installers to develop their technologies, to coach them, to train them, and to disseminate our approach in different cities in Europe, in France, in Germany, in Italy, to make emerge a replicable model at urban scale, thanks to coaching and viral effects. Just to focus on the basis of the Street HP approach. So we want to support the demand at street neighborhood level to make group purchases emerge. So at first we want to make a sort of diagnosis. So it's the goal of our tool, which want to identify the types of adapted individual homes in a defined geographical area, and to facilitate the creation of sort of clusters of similar housing to launch this collective purchase. About the solution, we want to propose a simple catalog of solutions, clear, industrialized solutions. And about the financing, we want to propose secure financing packages adapted to collective purchases with innovative business models, contracts, guarantees, etc. So the goal is to support demand for that. We make the same thing with the global supply ecosystem. So the industrial solution providers, the installers, to help them grow, to be adapted to the massive demand which is going to come. So the first brick is about training. We want to train installers in the different solution package that are available. So the goal is to help them to know these solutions, these industrialized packages, because they have to deploy it in this group purchases. And it's about offsite solutions, so it's not very well known now by the market. And we want to work with solution providers to develop these different packages of solutions. And the last one is about collaboration. We want to create a sort of forum for cooperation between actors in the supply chain to share best practices and develop partnerships to develop their offers and their solutions. By I talked previously about a viral effect. The goal is to make consumers buy these heat pumps to commit themselves in this collective purchases group. So for that, we want to demonstrate the merits of the approach. And for that, we want to make emerge one or more pilot projects. And the goal is to trigger this viral effect by what we call a marketing campaign. So for that, the goal is to disseminate very widely the project and the idea of collective purchasing of heat pumps. And for that, we are going to use, for example, outdoor events to present the solutions. We want to use demonstrator pilot neighborhoods, maybe for example, using one homes and with this technology, and to show like a sort of like a showroom to the residents of the neighborhood, the capacity of the heat pumps, and to organize a sort of Tupperware-like presentations in neighborhoods, in cities, just to encourage inhabitants to commit in these collective purchases. One thing just to finish, for the Energy Sprung team, it's a very the advantage of this project is to begin addressing the private housing market segment, because until now we worked with social housing organizations, so it's a business to business renovation. But now the goal is to address private housing sector, and for that we want to begin by energy systems, because we cannot address this market with global deep industrialized renovation to the net zero level in one step. It's too hard because of the costs, because of the fact that it's very innovative technologies. But we can start with energy systems, and for us it's a very good first steps to commit people in collective purchases. Now we know that people are already committed in collective purchases for example energy, for something like that, but tomorrow we want to make them purchase collectively energy systems, and why not after tomorrow global energy renovation with, for example, insulated facade systems or insulated roof systems, etc. And just to finish about the planning, so the project is on 3 years. We are going to work until the end of 2026, and so you can find again the 3 main axes of work in the time of the project. So yeah, just you can find it in details if you want, but it's a global time of our project. And thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Pierre-Antoine. Owen, thank you very much. Thank you for the clear presentation. In fact, it's a perfect illustration of what you want to achieve with Clear and Stretch HP. So let's go for some questions and comments coming from the audience. So the first one is for Owen. What is the range of discount that will be expected compared to business as usual? And will the discount be through EU funds or a discount in the heat pumps from the installer?
Yeah, good question, and thanks for it. I don't want to speak out of turn because the discounts haven't been agreed yet, because the consumer organizations haven't been directly in touch with the installers to secure them yet. However, in our ClearX project, there were pretty significant discounts. A lot of the discounts came in at around 10%, but some of them came in at up to 20%, which is quite significant, particularly for a more expensive product. And no, the discount does not come from EU funds. The EU funding is to run the project, and essentially to run the work packages and to pay the members involved in the project to be able to run the project. The discount is agreed by the installer / retailer with the consumer organization running the collective purchase campaign, given that they can guarantee, I don't know, 25 or 55 heat pumps. So it makes sense to provide a discount on that.
And in a second part of this question, is this something that developers of new homes could also take part in?
That is a very good question. To the best of my knowledge, it's not. I believe it's solely for consumers who are transitioning from fossil fuel boilers to new builds, because fossil fuel boilers to heat pumps. New built homes would already have heat pumps going into them, so we wouldn't be contributing to the transition targets by bringing those in. So no, they won't count.
Thank you very much, Robin. Yeah, there is a big comment for you. Heat pumps, like air conditioners, use refrigerants with an annual leak rate close to 10%. These are greenhouse gases, the most common of which are 2,000 times more harmful than CO2, with a global warming potential. Have you taken this problem into account in your assessments?
Sorry, it's for me, this question, or?
Yeah, it's for you. Yeah.
Just can you just repeat, please?
Yes. There is a comment and a question. They said heat pumps like air conditioners use refrigerants with an annual leak rate close to 10%. These are greenhouse gases, the most common of which are 2,000 times more harmful than CO2. Have you taken this problem into account in your assessments?
Yeah. It was a huge problem, but now the goal of our development is to help solution provider to work with new technologies, and now we know that there is a lot of new sort of heat pumps that are using new types of refrigerants. For example, one is CO2, and these refrigerants are have a very less potential of global warming. If you use CO2 in refrigerants, for example, the global warming potential is the same as the CO2 that we already emit in the atmosphere. So the goal is to work with these technologies and to help them adapt, because the public policies are changing very fast about this, and now we have some European regulation that are going to forbid this whole types of refrigerants. So they have to adapt, and they have to adapt their technologies, and the goal is to support them doing that.
Yeah, exactly. We have the new legislation in F gases. So, yeah. Owen, for you, talking about Clear HP, how the project will gather people towards group buy-in scheme, and what is the threshold to make a group purchase?
In terms of how we reach out, that really has to do with the role that national consumer organizations already play in civil society and in the countries they operate in. Many of our members have a very good name in the countries they run in. They're very well known by consumers. They have a lot of subscribed consumers, and they're very much a trusted voice. So for one example, they have very significant mailing lists. And I know, for example, with our member in Slovenia, ZBS, they routinely run collective purchase campaigns, and actually they're so effective that consumers essentially wait to hear from ZBS about their next collective purchase campaign. So a lot of our members, particularly the ones who have run several campaigns before, they really don't have problems with consumer outreach. In terms of the threshold, I would need to double check, but I imagine it's around 10 or so, but I would have to double check and get back to you on that one.
Awesome. And in the same line of the question for Pierre-Antoine, what levers, players, or opportunities will you use to launch group purchasing initiatives for local residents?
Yeah, the goal of our project is to attract them by the marketing campaign. So using this viral effect that I previously mentioned, but we want to use the trust in local authorities too. We want to work with cities because they have some climate goals. They have to help their inhabitants to renovate their homes. So we want to work with them because we think that residents trust their local authorities. We want to work with resident associations too, for example, neighborhood associations. And we have in the project a social housing organization, because in some types of neighborhoods, you may have some private homes, but you can have a social housing too. And maybe launching a very big project with a social housing organization can give the will to the other inhabitants in private housing to do the same thing. So that's all the lever that we want to activate, to launch group purchasing initiatives.
Awesome. Owen, it was hard to hear that Spain is one of the worst cases. Are there, you find a lot of difference in between countries in the resilience to adopt heat pumps?
Yeah, I have to say, so we ran that mystery shopping project in 4 countries last year. We ran it in Czech Republic, Slovenia, Slovakia, and Spain. And Spain was really an outlier, and it really surprised us when the data came in that of the other 3 countries, you had consumers that were between averagely satisfied and very satisfied, and most of whom said they would seriously consider buying a heat pump afterwards. And in Spain, it was really bad results. We think this is because the demand perhaps is so high in Spain that that installers aren't really incentivized to be providing good quality service at the moment, because there's always going to be more customers. That's just our theory, but there does seem to be quite a strong discrepancy from one country to another. But then for example, our Slovakian member commented that they're concerned that a lot of people are getting trained up to become installers, and then they're moving to higher paid countries within the EU, meaning that there's not enough installers in countries that don't have such high salaries, which would be another concern.
Absolutely. We will need to continue to work on that. And a final question for both of you. As you know, we are in the month of the skills for build up. How important are skills related to the fastest deployment of heat pumps in Europe?
I'll go first then. Skills are crucial. They really need to be at the heart of the heat pump action plan. And if I could give one piece of advice to the heat pump industry, it would be to improve your after sales service. Happy consumers are good for business, and we need to have a culture shift where we start to see the purchase of a heat pump not as the end of a consumer's journey with the heat pump, but actually as the beginning of their journey with the heat pump.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe from my side, very quickly, we are convinced that if we want to accelerate, we have to deploy off-site systems because of the question of the cost of the manpower, etc. And if you want to achieve our goals, it's the technology that we have to explore. And for that, there is a lot of new skills that are to be developed by suppliers, by installers. And I think that we have to work on this, on these skills in the global Europe.
Perfect. 2 final quotes to finish the webinar for today. Pierre-Antoine, Owen, thank you so much, and thank you to the audience for attending today's webinar. A reminder that you will be able to find the recording of today's session on the Build Up portal and our YouTube channel in the coming days, together with the presentation slides. Build Up has several webinar sessions already in the pipeline for the rest of the month of April and May. So keep an eye on the Build Up calendar of events and our social media for updates on this. Be sure also to register on the Build Up website to be able to share and disseminate your own content, and follow us on social media for updates. We wish you all a very pleasant end of the week. Thank you and goodbye. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.